In March of 1943, the American Army stood on uncertain legs. It possessed equipment, manpower, and ambition, but it lacked confidence, the one resource that could not be shipped across the Atlantic. Recent defeats in North Africa had exposed inexperience, weak coordination, and brittle command structures. At Kasserine Pass, American forces had been driven back hard, and German commanders concluded that the Americans, though numerous, could be shaken and broken. The German army in Tunisia was not guessing. Its officers had years of experience fighting British armor and infantry across the desert. They believed they understood their enemy. What they did not yet understand was that the Americans were changing. Into this moment stepped Lieutenant General George Smith Patton, Jr., newly appointed commander of U.S. II Corps. His arrival signaled a sharp shift in tone. Discipline was enforced immediately. Helmets were mandatory. Units drilled relentlessly. Patton believed discipline created instinct, and instinct decided battles when fear took over. Explaining his philosophy, Patton later summarized what he believed made armies function under pressure.
Discipline is based on pride in the profession of arms, meticulous attention to detail, and mutual respect.
From the German perspective, Guettar appeared to be another opportunity to apply familiar methods. The terrain favored armor moving through a narrow valley toward American positions. German commanders believed a concentrated armored assault would once again shatter inexperienced troops and reopen the road north. The German plan relied on shock, speed, and confidence earned through repetition. As one German officer later acknowledged, they expected the Americans to retreat once the tanks came forward in force. Before the battle, Patton addressed his senior officers and made his expectations unmistakably clear.
We're not going to outrun the Germans. We're not going to outthink them. But by God, we're going to outfight them.
On the morning of March 23, 1943, German artillery opened fire. The bombardment was precise and heavy, designed to soften American positions before the armored advance. Soon after, German tanks moved into the valley, supported by infantry and self-propelled guns. From the German viewpoint, this was a textbook operation, one that had succeeded many times before. What followed surprised them. American artillery responded immediately and continuously. Minefields slowed the advance. Anti-tank guns waited until the German tanks were dangerously close before firing. The valley filled with smoke, flame, and wreckage. Tanks burned on both sides, but the American line did not collapse. A U.S. Army historian later summarized the German intent behind the attack.
The German attack at Guettar was intended to smash American forces by shock and momentum, as it had so often before.
German after-action reports revealed growing frustration. Attacks that should have broken through instead stalled. Losses mounted. German tank crews found themselves advancing into coordinated fire rather than scattered resistance. One American infantryman would later describe the experience from the defensive line.
They just kept coming, and we just kept shooting.
Patton's control over the battlefield was deliberate. He moved constantly, demanding information and suppressing panic. He refused reckless counterattacks, understanding that restraint at the right moment could be as decisive as aggression. By the end of the first day, German momentum had drained away. By March 24th, German commanders recognized that the assault had failed. The Americans had absorbed the attack and remained in place. Limited American counterattacks followed, measured and controlled, forcing German units to withdraw. That evening, Patton recorded his assessment in his diary.
The enemy attacked us in force and was repulsed. This is the first time American troops have stood and fought German tanks successfully.
From the German side, Guettar marked a quiet but troubling realization. American troops, when properly prepared and commanded, were no longer predictable. They could absorb punishment and respond with discipline. This realization would grow in importance as Patton's reputation spread. By late 1943 and into 1944, German intelligence reports increasingly singled him out as a dangerous opponent. Adolf Hitler himself became fixated on Patton as a symbol of American offensive capability. According to German High Command records, Hitler repeatedly identified Patton as the Allies' most aggressive and capable field commander, believing him to be central to future offensives.
That man Patton is the most dangerous of all the Allied generals.
Hitler's fixation was not abstract. In 1944, German commanders became convinced that Patton would lead the main Allied invasion force in Western Europe. This belief shaped German deployments and contributed directly to the success of Allied deception operations before D-Day. The irony is that this fear began here, not in France, but in Tunisia. At Guettar, Patton did not win a dramatic breakthrough. He won something quieter and more enduring: credibility. Reflecting later on the battle, a senior American commander emphasized what mattered most.
Guettar restored our confidence. It showed that American troops, properly led, could defeat the best that the Germans had.
Patton often returned to the idea that courage was not the absence of fear, but control over it.
Courage is fear holding on a minute longer.
At Guettar, American soldiers held on. German commanders took notice, and from that point forward, George Patton was no longer just an American general to the enemy. He was a problem.
As Patton's reputation hardened, Adolf Hitler's attention followed. German intelligence assessments increasingly framed Patton not as a single commander, but as a force multiplier whose presence signaled offensive intent. To Hitler, Patton represented movement, aggression, and unpredictability, qualities the German High Command increasingly lacked by 1944. During conferences with senior commanders, Hitler returned repeatedly to Patton's name, expressing suspicion and unease. He believed Patton embodied the American way of war at its most dangerous: fast, relentless, and willing to accept losses to achieve momentum. This belief was shared and reinforced within the German command structure. After the war, Germany's senior officers spoke candidly about how Patton was viewed from their side. At Nuremberg, the former chief of operations of the German High Command explained how Allied commanders were ranked in German threat assessments.
We considered General Patton to be the most dangerous of the Allied generals.
Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, who faced Allied armies in Western Europe, echoed this assessment when reflecting on the war.
Patton was our most dangerous opponent.
Patton's fear of Patton reached its peak in early 1944. Convinced that Patton would command the main invasion force, Hitler ordered German units held in reserve near the Pas de Calais, expecting Patton to strike there, even after the Normandy landings began. This fixation distorted German strategy at a critical moment. Divisions that could have counterattacked in Normandy remained idle, waiting for an assault that never came. Patton, the general Hitler feared most, was not even on the beach. The roots of that fear traced back to moments like Guettar, where American troops did not collapse and where Patton demonstrated something the German command could not ignore: control under pressure. What began as a defensive stand in a Tunisian valley ended as a permanent presence in Hitler's mind.